Walking through a hazelnut spread aisle, you'll easily read lines like, made with real hazelnuts, deliciously smooth, or for the whole family. Intriguing, right? You like it, maybe your children even love it more. That glossy jar, that early morning toast swipe comfort in a spoon. But that's only the surface. Those jars hide a quieter story sugar content that rivals candy bars, palm oil masquerading as vegetable fat, and flavor formulas that whisper vanilla when you expect pure hazelnut. In some cases, the hazelnut percentage is so low, you're essentially eating sweetened cocoa paste dressed up in brown. And while your body might welcome the rush of sweetness at first, over time, it's telling you something else. Peak sweetness followed by a blood sugar dip fats meant for shelf life rather than wellness, and a taste memory slipping towards synthetic instead of true nutty. So how do you pick the ones worth your spoon? In this video, we'll show you 5 spreads to avoid at all costs, and then 2 that are actually great. Let's start with the most popular one. Number 1, Nutella Ferrero. The jar that once meant Sunday mornings now reads like a lab manual. Every swirl still looks familiar. The soft gleam, the scent that reminds you of toast and quiet kitchens. It's the same brown jar that comforted children and followed them into adulthood. But the truth is, the spread that built its fame on love and hazelnuts now carries more of what the body doesn't need and less of what the label promises. Pick up a jar and read the fine print. The first word you see is sugar, not hazelnut. The second is palm oil. Only after those two does the ingredient that gives the product its name finally appear. Hazelnuts, roughly 13% of the total mix. That ratio alone tells a story. It's not a bad product by accident. It's a perfectly engineered system that favors consistency, speed, and cost over authenticity. In truth, what made Nutella iconic was not just its flavor, but its emotional comfort. It turned ordinary bread into a small celebration. Yet as production scaled to feed more than 70 countries, the company leaned on stability over substance. Palm oil replaced the slower-setting cocoa butter, vanillin replaced real vanilla, and the sweetness climbed to ensure uniform pleasure across markets. What looks simple is in reality a carefully tuned industrial composition. The spread itself still glides easily across bread, glossy, pliable, never grainy. That texture feels trustworthy, but let it sit for a minute, and you'll see the top layer glisten with a faint oil sheen. That isn't nostalgia. It's palm oil separation, the sign of a fat optimized for shelf life, not for purity. By contrast, older formulations that used more nut and less oil had a denser body, a slower melt, and a warmer finish. What you gain in convenience, you quietly lose in depth. Moreover, the aroma tells its own story. That familiar scent isn't from real vanilla pods, it comes from vanillin, a lab-made compound often derived from the byproducts of wood pulp or petroleum. It gives a fast, clean sweetness, but lacks the earthy complexity of natural vanilla. To most people, it smells right because memory has already accepted it. And that's the quiet genius of industrial flavor design. Make it close enough that nostalgia does the rest. Rest a bit. Think about the pattern. A jar that once held honesty now carries marketing precision. A household favorite that once symbolized comfort now stands as the perfect case study in global food engineering. There's nothing evil about it, just efficient. Yet efficiency in this case comes with a cost your tongue can taste and your body can measure. Each 2 tablespoon serving holds about 21 grams of sugar, nearly as much as a small candy bar. That means your morning toast is no longer breakfast. It's dessert by another name. Ultimately, the question isn't whether you should love Nutella. Millions still do. It's whether the comfort you buy is the same as the one you remember. Because what used to be crafted from local hazelnuts and slow roasting now travels through a supply chain of refineries, tankers, and fragrance labs. The sweetness still greets you. The shine still convinces you. But something human left the jar long ago. Sweetness should never need a disguise. Number 2, Good and Gather Target. Store brand, friendly price, complicated back label. On Target's clean white shelf, this jar looks reassuring, minimalist font, familiar shape, that soft promise of simple ingredients. It feels safe, even wholesome, a smart pick for parents who want something Nutella-like but less extravagant. The price whispers comfort. The body, however, may hear something else entirely. First, the order of ingredients tells the truth, the marketing doesn't. Sugar comes first. Palm oil comes second. Hazelnuts, the very reason the spread exists, appear third. That sequence defines not just flavor, but biology. Your body processes what it receives first, and most sugar spikes, then oil coating the gut, then a hint of nut protein at the end. It's not dangerous in isolation, but repetition writes memory into metabolism. Every spoonful sends a quick signal, glucose hits the bloodstream, insulin surges to escort it out. and dopamine flickers in the brain's reward center. That's the familiar pleasure of sweetness, brief, bright, and gone in minutes. Over time, that pattern dulls sensitivity. You crave another bite sooner than you expect. The body interprets the rush as energy, then realizes it has overshot blood sugar drops. Focus blurs and appetite stirs again. It's not addiction exactly. It's repetition disguised as satisfaction. Meanwhile, palm oil takes a slower route. It's rich in palmitic acid, a saturated fat that gives spreads their soft, stable texture. It resists spoilage, but so does wax. Once inside the body, that stability becomes stubbornness. Palmitic acid elevates LDL cholesterol and low-grade inflammation when it dominates the fat mix. One serving doesn't matter. Daily habits do. Over months, that quiet excess begins to shift. The balance arteries thicken slightly. Cells become a bit less responsive to insulin and energy peaks turn heavier. The label says natural flavor, a phrase that sounds gentle but reveals little. In most formulations, it's a blend of lab-made aromatic compounds designed to mimic real hazelnut and vanilla. When the tongue encounters those signals without the nutrients that normally accompany them, the brain registers reward but receives no reinforcement. Over time, the pleasure loop disconnects sweetness without sustenance. That's why industrial snacks satisfy quickly, but fade even faster. The brain keeps asking for what never truly arrived. Yet to the shopper, it all seems harmless. A spoon here, a toast there, a child's treat after school. The problem isn't a single moment. It's the quiet stacking of moments that feel innocent. The metabolic system remembers even what the mind forgets. Small sugar surges, repeated daily shape energy rhythm, sleep pattern, and mood swings. It's not drama, it's drift. A gentle but constant pull away from balance. Still, this is not a story of guilt. It's a reminder of proportion. When a jar saves $1 but costs you steadiness, is it still a bargain? Real value lies in how your body feels 2 hours later, not what your receipt shows at checkout. If you want sweetness, make it count more nuts, less filler oils that come from seeds rather than plantations. That's not luxury, that's common sense disguised as care. Cheap sweetness fades fast, but its echo lingers in the bloodstream. Number 3. Kroger Hazelnut Spread. Ever wondered why some spreads feel perfect on the knife but wrong on the tongue? Kroger's Hazelnut Spread answers that question in silence, a silence you can almost taste. The jar looks convincing, the color deep, and even the lid promising the same comfort you'd expect from any big-name rival. But as soon as you open it, the illusion begins to slide. To begin, the texture is flawless, almost suspiciously so. It spreads without resistance, smooth as cream paint. The knife glides, no drag, no crumble. For a second, you think this is what quality feels like. Then you realize it feels that way, because it's built to. The first hint of scent gives it away, sugary, faintly artificial, with the oil already shimmering on top like a thin mirror. Real hazelnut butter leaves a faint roughness. This one leaves a reflection. That perfection, of course, has a formula. Kroger lists sugar first, palm oil second, hazelnuts third. A quick glance looks harmless. A closer one reveals why the texture seems engineered. Palm oil and canola combine to create a perfectly obedient fat-based glossy light spreadable in any season. Add emulsifiers like soy lecithin, and you get a texture that stays stable for months. It's efficient, but efficiency comes at a price. These fats don't vanish when eaten. They linger on the tongue, leaving a thin film that dulls the next bite. Next comes the flavor test. The sweetness hits instantly like frosting from a grocery store cake. Cocoa follows, but softly with a faint metallic echo, a sign of heavily processed powder. The nut flavor, which should emerge slowly and warmly, is barely there. You can taste where it should be, but not what it was. Online shoppers describe it bluntly. Tastes like chocolate icing, more sugar than nut, leaves your mouth greasy. And one comment captures the experience perfectly. It spreads beautifully, but it tastes tired. That tiredness is exactly the point. Each spoonful brings pleasure, but it's shallow, a sweet note that peaks too early and collapses just as fast. Your mouth feels coated but not satisfied. Real nut spreads have a pulse, a little resistance, a slow melt, a faint warmth. This one just slides through, frictionless, forgettable. The satisfaction fades faster than the shine. On the other hand, it's easy to see why people keep buying it. The jar is affordable, familiar, always stocked. It looks like a safe choice, a fair middle ground between indulgence and budget. But beneath that convenience sits the same quiet compromise that defines most industrial comfort foods. More filler, less character. You don't notice it at first because texture tricks the brain. It equates smooth with premium. Yet smoothness alone isn't honesty. It's choreography. Several reviewers unknowingly echo the same verdict: kids love it, adults not so much. That single line says it all. Children chase sweetness. Adults eventually chase meaning. The older palate recognizes when something's missing, when flavor feels edited, when richness feels rehearsed. In closing, Kroger's spread proves that perfection can be misleading. The gleam, the glide, even the effortless melt, all signs of a formula built for predictability, not authenticity. The mouth knows it. The body feels it. And once you notice the pattern, it's hard to untaste it. Shine is not a synonym for quality. What spreads easily rarely stays honest for long. Number 4. Walmart Great Value. Walmart's Great Value. Hazelnut spread tastes exactly how it sounds: broad, sweet, and safe. The flavor lands quickly, then vanishes. There's no rise, no echo, just a sugary blur that feels like déjà vu. It doesn't offend, but it doesn't linger either. And that's not an accident. That's design. This spread wasn't made to surprise you. It was made to never surprise you. Behind the jar lies an entire industrial rhythm, recipes written not by chefs, but by supply chain engineers. Great Value is a private label product manufactured through co-packers who supply several major retailers. The goal isn't culinary excellence. It's cross-brand standardization, a single formulation that survives shipping, heat storage, and repetition. In that system, taste becomes a parameter, not an art. The first rule is stability. Palm oil ensures palmitic stability, a fat matrix that stays semi-solid across climates. Add emulsifiers like lecithin, and the spread remains cohesive even after months in a warehouse. Then comes sugar, roughly a third of the jar, not only for sweetness but as a preservative and masking agent, blurring subtle notes that might vary between batches. What's left is a smooth, predictable paste, what food scientists call organoleptic flattening, where texture and aroma are optimized for familiarity rather than authenticity. There's efficiency in that. Palm oil is cheaper and more uniform than hazelnut oil. It holds color and viscosity better under fluctuating temperatures. Cocoa powder and vanillin replicate the comforting scent of chocolate nut without the volatility of natural oils. From a manufacturing standpoint, this is brilliant. From a sensory one, it's numb. Experts in sensory science often note that products like this create what's known as flavor fatigue, the brain's rapid adjustment to predictable stimuli. The first spoon tastes comforting. The third tastes muted. It's the same mechanism that makes processed snacks addictive yet forgettable. Consistency becomes its own narcotic. Meanwhile, marketing fills the emotional gap. The phrase, "great value," performs what economists call perceived equity transfer, when brand trust substitutes for product depth. The blue and white label signals affordability, cleanliness, stability. You trust it before you even taste it. The packaging and pricing together whisper safe, steady, familiar. And for millions of households, that's enough. But the price of sameness is subtle. When every retailer's spread tastes identical, individuality dissolves. You aren't buying flavor. You're buying supply chain uniformity: cocoa from West Africa, palm oil from Indonesia, sugar refined in the Midwest, all converging into a neutral identity that could belong to anyone, anywhere. It's an edible spreadsheet, efficient, scalable, emotionally flat. Even so, there's logic in it. Walmart doesn't chase culinary perfection. It chases operational resilience, the ability to sell affordable sweetness to anyone in any season without failure. That's not malicious. It's modern food economy. But it also reminds us what gets lost when convenience wins every argument. Great Value delivers exactly what it promises: a low-cost, shelf-ready comfort that never changes. And maybe that's the quiet tragedy: it's too consistent to remember. Save money, keep standards. Because value should not end at the register, and flavor shouldn't be the first casualty of efficiency. Number 5. Peanut Butter & Co. Dark Chocolatey Hazelnut Spread. The name reads, Elegant, Dark Chocolatey Hazelnut Spread. It sounds like something refined, adult, balanced between indulgence and restraint. You picture a deeper cocoa, fewer additives, maybe even less sugar. But one spoonful tells another story. It tastes soft, safe, and oddly shallow, more frosting than dark. The bitterness you expect never arrives. It's all perfume and sweetness. Granted, the label works perfectly. The matte finish, the earthy brown tones, the subtle word chocolatey, everything whispers natural. It's a smart design, especially next to louder jars on the same shelf. It signals maturity, self-control, even virtue. But as soon as you read the ingredients, the illusion starts to flicker. Sugar stands first, palm oil second, hazelnuts somewhere in the middle. The cocoa is alkalized, processed to remove acidity and color variation. And the aroma, vanillin, the cheaper synthetic cousin of real vanilla. The elegance is visual, not structural. This is where marketing psychology steps in. Experts call it the health halo effect when a product's visual or verbal cues like dark, organic, or natural convince the brain it's healthier than it is. The darker the color, the smaller the guilt. It's an aesthetic of virtue. In food marketing studies, color alone can shift perception. Deep brown implies less sugar, minimalism implies quality, and the word dark creates a sense of moderation, even when sweetness levels stay the same. As a result, the spread doesn't have to change much, only the story does. Palm oil keeps the texture uniform and glossy. Vanillin replaces real vanilla at a fraction of the cost. The dark chocolate label justifies a slightly more bitter note from processed cocoa, enough to feel sophisticated but still mass-pleasing. What you're tasting is sensory engineering, a calibrated imitation of indulgence. However, when the cocoa has been alkalized, a process known as Dutching, it loses most of its natural antioxidants and deep aroma. That's why this dark version tastes round, but thin, as though the richness has been ironed out. Even the mouthfeel feels rehearsed, soft at first, then dry, almost dusty. A few consumers noticed too, tastes more like candy than cocoa, one said. Another wrote dark in color only. Both reviews hit the truth more precisely than any lab test could. Still, the illusion works for a while, because the label flatters our better selves. It says you're choosing smarter even when the numbers don't back it up. That's what makes it such a modern product, not fake, just flattering. It's wellness in disguise, a reward you can justify. The irony is that it's built on the same scaffolding as the cheapest supermarket spread sugar palm oil flavoring repetition. But because the lighting is dimmer, we let ourselves believe it's something more. At last, you realize the dark isn't depth, it's branding. Real darkness in chocolate comes from roast ratio and patience, not packaging. But patience doesn't scale and packaging does. So we end up with a shadow of sophistication, convincing, marketable, but hollow. Dark should mean depth, not perfume. And sometimes the truest honesty on the shelf isn't the loudest label, it's the quiet one that still smells like real cocoa and lingers when the sweetness fades. 5 jars in a pattern begins to emerge. Different labels, same logic. Each brand, whether dressed in nostalgia, minimalism, or health claims, bends toward the same center sweetness, stability, and scale. It's not a conspiracy, just the quiet gravity of modern food. But the story doesn't end there. Because beyond that aisle of sameness, a few makers still treat hazelnut and cocoa as ingredients, not props. They build flavor instead of formula, honesty instead of illusion. And that's where we're heading next, to the rare jars that still taste like care. Rigoni di Asiago, nocciolata dark. In the foothills of northern Italy near the town of Asiago, some recipes still move at the pace of weather. Rigoni di Asiago isn't just another brand on the spread aisle. It's a family's continuation of restraint. 3 generations have made one decision over and over: not to hurry. That's what gives their nocciolata dark its quiet difference. It tastes as if time were still an ingredient. Simple ingredients, slow rhythm, a taste that remembers where it came from. While most spreads start with palm oil and sugar, nocciolata begins with hazelnuts, about 16 to 17% organically grown cold ground, and mixed with cocoa from fair trade cooperatives in South America. There are no artificial flavors, no palm oil, no preservatives. Even the sweetness comes from organic cane sugar, which caramelizes slightly during slow heating. What seems like a marketing promise is here just a matter of method. Meanwhile, the process itself reads more like craftsmanship than production. Instead of high-speed blending, the hazelnuts are ground using a cold grind technique that protects the aromatic oils from oxidation. The cocoa goes through low-temperature conching, where the mass is mixed and aerated for hours, not to speed the process, but to coax out bitterness and keep natural acidity alive. These choices are not symbolic. They are chemical. Lower temperatures preserve volatile compounds, the molecules responsible for aroma, bloom, and aftertaste. Beyond that, the emulsification is done slowly using the nut's own fat as a natural stabilizer. That's why nocciolata holds together without palm oil or hydrogenated fats. There's a certain discipline in letting nature solve a problem you could fix faster with additives. It's slower, costlier, but cleaner. In sensory science, this restraint shows up as aromatic integrity. when what you smell still matches what you taste. And then the payoff texture that feels alive. It doesn't melt instantly. It lingers, warms, unfolds. The cocoa feels deep but not heavy. The nut note rises slowly, earthy, balanced, ending with a faint vanilla trace. Real vanilla, not its lab cousin. You don't need much. A teaspoon feels sufficient because the density carries flavor longer. In a world obsessed with more, this jar teaches less. Notably, even its price higher than mainstream spreads plays differently once you understand how it's built. A thicker product lasts longer. Flavor intensity reduces portion size naturally. That's what food economists sometimes call functional value density, when quality compensates for quantity. It's not indulgence, it's efficiency disguised as pleasure. Beyond that, there's the emotional honesty. The label doesn't shout healthy, clean, or dark. It simply lists ingredients one by one in full words you can pronounce. No vegetable oil blend, no natural flavors. Just cocoa, hazelnuts, cane sugar, and vanilla extract. It's not purity for the sake of pride, it's simplicity as a working philosophy. In sum, Rigoni di Asiago shows that the opposite of industrial speed isn't nostalgia, it's attention. This spread proves that transparency can still compete with technology, and patience can still win against profit. Real comfort returns when the label is simple. And honesty, it turns out, has a flavor too. Number 7. Vigo Fine Hazelnut Chocolate Spread. The label reads like a pantry, not a lab. Vigo Fine Hazelnut Chocolate Spread lists everything in plain view. Organic hazelnuts, cocoa, sunflower oil, shea fat, cane sugar, and vanilla extract. No palm oil, no emulsifiers, no coated additives. The jar feels honest before it's even opened. This brand doesn't chase luxury, it chases clarity. Born in Berlin in the early 2010s, Vigo started as a small vegan chocolate company built on one question: can fairness taste indulgent? More than a decade later, the answer is spreading literally across shelves from London to Los Angeles. Every jar is organic certified, fair trade approved, and vegan registered, carrying the European organic leaf and the fair trade blue mark. In 2021, it won PETA's Best Vegan Chocolate Brand Award, not for glamour, but for consistency. Accordingly, the spread itself reflects that philosophy. The first spoon feels heavier, thicker, slightly grainier, a texture closer to ground nuts than whipped oils. That's because it's built on roughly 22% hazelnuts, more than most household spreads combined. Cocoa comes from fair trade cooperatives in the Dominican Republic and Peru. The fat base, a blend of sunflower oil and shea butter, offers natural oxidative stability, keeping the spread smooth without preservatives. No palm oil, no shortcuts, just chemistry aligned with conscience. Still, the payoff isn't moral, it's sensory. The flavor opens warm and nutty, then deepens into a slow chocolate hum. A hint of roasted grain lingers, balanced by light sweetness. Reviewers often describe it as less glossy, but more real. One shopper wrote, "It's thicker than Nutella, you feel the hazelnuts instead of sugar." Another noted, "Tastes like chocolate that actually remembers its food." Some even admit it's not as immediately addictive, but that's the point, real richness doesn't rush. Besides, Vigo's price, around $8 to $10 for a 14-ounce jar, sits above supermarket lines, but its intensity stretches further. A teaspoon covers more toast because the fat and nut density carry longer flavor retention. In food economics, that's not indulgence, that's functional value performance by purity. Beyond taste, Vigo built its trust on transparency. The company publicly discloses its deforestation-free supply chain, publishes emission goals, and uses fully recyclable glass jars with paper labels. Even the cocoa roasting facilities in Italy are powered partly by renewable energy. This isn't marketing decoration, it's operational discipline. And consumers notice. Across European markets, Vigo consistently ranks in the top tier of vegan chocolate spreads with satisfaction scores above 90%. It's especially beloved by allergy-conscious families since it avoids soy and dairy entirely. Unlike mass-market brands that rely on nostalgia, Vigo's strength is its modern honesty, no emotional hook, no background music, just facts well executed. In the end, that's the quiet revolution, a product proving that transparency can feel indulgent, that ethics and flavor aren't opposites. The jar itself looks modest, brown label, clean font, recyclable lid. Yet behind that simplicity lies precision, the kind of confidence that doesn't need persuasion. Clean doesn't mean plain, it just means real. And transparency, as Vigo shows, still tastes better. At the end of the aisle, it's easy to see the pattern now. What we spread on our bread each morning isn't just food, it's a reflection of how we value time, truth, and effort. Every jar, good or bad, tells a story about modern comfort, the shortcuts we've normalized, and the patience we've forgotten. But awareness changes everything. When you start reading labels, tasting slowly, and choosing deliberately, you vote not just for your health, but for honesty. You remind the market that quality still matters, and that flavor built on care always lasts longer than one built on convenience. So the next time you reach for a jar, pause, read it. Think about what fills it and what doesn't. Because the richest spreads aren't always the sweetest ones. Sometimes the real luxury is simply knowing what's inside.
This video does not promote division within the United States or encourage education. All content is presented for the purpose of exploration, analysis, and fostering discussion based on current events, public sentiment, and social trends. We fully respect the United States Constitution and all federal regulations. If today analysis made you think, drop a comment so we can keep the conversations going. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you will never miss our next independent deep dive.